August 20th, 1989, Beverly Hills. The kind of zip code where bad things aren't supposed to happen. Inside a multi-million-dollar Mediterranean mansion, Jose and Kitty Menendez are watching TV in their den. 30 minutes later, they were nearly unrecognizable, blown apart by 15 rounds from two 12-gauge shotguns. The callers who reported the crime were their own sons, Lyle and Erik. For 30 years, this case has split the world down the middle. Were they greedy rich kids who slaughtered their parents for Rolexes and freedom? Or were they victims of unspeakable monsters, finally snapping after a lifetime of torture? Tonight, we aren't looking at the made-for-TV drama. We're looking at the cold, hard evidence. Open the dossier. To understand the end, you have to understand the beginning. The Menendez family was the picture of the American dream. Jose was a Cuban immigrant who clawed his way to the top of the entertainment industry, CEO of live entertainment. He was powerful, demanding, and obsessed with perfection. Kitty was the trophy wife, a former beauty queen slowly dissolving in alcohol and prescription drugs, existing in her husband's shadow. And then there were the boys. Lyle, the older brother, the aggressive go-getter attending Princeton. Erik, the sensitive younger brother, a ranked tennis player destined for UCLA. On the surface, they had everything. But in forensic psychology, we call this a gilded cage. The pressure to perform was immense. Jose didn't just want success. He demanded absolute obedience. The family dynamic was a pressure cooker waiting for a spark. The murders themselves were brutal, messy, and amateurish. Jose was shot point blank in the back of the head. Kitty was shot multiple times as she tried to crawl away. To police, it looked like a mob hit, overkill designed to send a message. The boys had an alibi. They were at the movies seeing Batman. They came home, found the bodies, and made the now famous hysterical 911 call. But grief usually doesn't look like a shopping spree. In the months following the funerals, Lyle and Erik blew through nearly $1 million of their inheritance. Rolexes, new cars, courtside Knicks tickets, even a restaurant for Lyle. It didn't smell right to investigators. The break came from an unlikely source, their therapist, Dr. Jerome Oziel. Erik, riddled with guilt, confessed to him. Then Lyle threatened the doctor to keep quiet. Oziel was terrified, but his mistress overheard everything and went to the police. The grieving sons were arrested for first-degree murder. This is where the case went from a tabloid spectacle to a national trauma. When the trial began in 1993, defense attorney Leslie Abramson dropped a bombshell. She argued the boys didn't kill for money. They killed out of mortal fear. The defense presented harrowing testimony that for their entire lives, Jose Menendez had subjected his sons to horrific sexual, physical, and emotional abuse. The details were stomach-churning, involving everyday objects turned into instruments of violation. Kitty, they claimed, was aware of the abuse, but was too broken and addicted to stop it. The legal strategy was imperfect self-defense. They argued that years of trauma had warped the brothers' perception of reality. In the days leading up to the murders, after the boys threatened to expose Jose, they truly believed their father was planning to kill them. They argued it wasn't a cold-blooded execution. It was a desperate, preemptive strike by hostages against their captor. The first trial ended in deadlocked juries. The world couldn't decide. But the second trial in 1995 was different. The judge severely limited the abuse testimony. The prosecution painted them as spoiled sociopaths. They were convicted and sentenced to life without parole. Decades later, a new generation is looking at the evidence and seeing something different. They see two kids who snapped. So what's the truth? Were they greedy monsters or tortured souls? In my experience, the scariest thing is that it can be both. They were victims. Who created victims? Most people want the simple lie. They want to believe monsters are born because it makes them feel safe. But you're still here, which means you know the ugly truth. This case proves that sometimes monsters are made right inside the American dream. If you're not afraid of what we might find in the dark, hit that subscribe button. Because the shadows aren't just out there, sometimes they're in the mirror.